Hello and welcome to Policy Beast. On tonight's show, we have Cliff Wilson. He is running for the 7th Middlesex State Representative seat this fall. Mr. Wilson, thank you so much for joining us tonight on Policy Beast.
Thank you for inviting me, Makita. I'm very happy to be here.
Fantastic. Well, as we were talking earlier, this is an opportunity for voters in Ashland and Framingham, because we stream online as well, to get to know who you are, why you're running, and some of the issues that mean the most to you. But I'd like to get started by asking you a very simple question. Who is Cliff Wilson, and why is he running for office right now?
Okay, that's a very good question. That's what all the politicians say. That's a very good question. I've reached a point in my life where, looking back and I'm saying, what's made me the happiest? I'm retired now, and I said, what really has made me the happiest? And with the Historical Society, with many of the things I've done, what's really made me the happiest is helping people. And what I really like is not necessarily knowing how I'm going to help them, because every day different people have different needs, and I just thought that the state rep job was kind of like that too. It would give me an opportunity to hear the needs of the people in the district and help them, whether it be put them in contact with somebody or arrange something to happen that will help them. That's why I want to run.
Now, you mentioned in passing that you've been at the Ashland Historical Society, and how long have you been there? What have you been doing at the Historical Society, and how do you think it informs what you're doing right now running for office?
Well, I've been at the Historical Society. I've been president for 22 years. I've been there for probably a little over 25 years. Mm-hmm. I've learned, and I am still learning, the history of Ashland. Believe me, it's just something that every day I learn something new, and just about every day I get questions about Ashland, be it people wanting to know about possibly their family who lived in Ashland, or people wanting to know about businesses that have been in Ashland, or people wanting to know what's going on in Ashland today. At the Society, basically, we're a font of information, we hope. We're a repository of information, and so I've been able to, gather that information in one spot and use it to help people again. Also, while I've been there in the past 4 years now, I've been doing paintings and images of Ashland. We have an awful lot of pictures at the house, and I've been trying to get these out into the public so that they can appreciate what Ashland was, and in some cases what Ashland could be.
So you've been running a very interesting campaign so far. And there are two things that I think that are sort of unusual that stand out. The first thing is that you're running unenrolled.
Yes.
So let's talk about that issue first. Why did you decide to run as an unenrolled candidate?
Primarily because I am unenrolled. In the past, I have been a member of one or the other party.
Okay.
But a number of years ago, I became a bit disenfranchised with both parties. And as I looked around, I realized that it isn't just me. 55 to 60% of the registered voters in Ashland and Framingham are unenrolled. So I'm running as unenrolled to represent, obviously, the entire district, but to give a voice to that 55 to 60% who haven't been represented by, quote unquote, the party system.
So that seems to be the philosophical underpinning as to why you're running enrolled. But the other interesting thing that you've done with your campaign is essentially, well, I'm just going to say this, you've taken a very non-traditional way of campaigning in that you haven't
my
really,
non-campaigning?
by not campaigning. Why did you come to that conclusion? What made you decide to approach this election in that manner? And is that part of your philosophical stance about being unenrolled, or is it different?
No, it goes beyond that.
Okay.
We'll just take the last primary, or building up to the last primary. The funding issue goes on. In our district alone, there was over $56,000 spent on campaigning. I spent $18. I had to drive into Boston to turn my papers in, and that cost me $18 in the parking garage. The majority of the money that came from, for that, came from out of the district. The money was spent outside of the district. So what does that tell me? That tells me that there are people outside of the district who are trying to influence what happens inside of the district, number one. Mm-hmm. And it tells me that the people who are taking this money and spending it don't particularly care about the district, because they could very easily be spending that money within the district, not outside of the district. At the state level, it gets even worse. We're talking over $500,000 that has been spent just up through the primary. Now, that's a lot of money that could have been used for better purposes, and I just don't understand why it should cost people so much to run for office. When you're running for office, you're giving a lot of your time, you're giving a lot of your effort, but you shouldn't be asking people for money just to go out and promote yourself, or to promote somebody else's ideas, be it, I've received letters from all sorts of different organizations who wanted me to fill out questionnaires. Will you vote? And they'll give you 27 questions. How would you vote on these 27 issues?
Yes.
And if we agree with you, then we'll fund you, we'll support you. Well, I don't think that's the way politics should work. I don't want to go into office and be owned by people who don't have the best interest of the people in the district at heart. So that was why I decided to run it that way.
So you're philosophically opposed to any kind of campaign donations, or just the ones that are coming from out of district?
Pretty much any campaign donations.
Okay.
I had, obviously I had people who were willing to, we'll put out signs, we'll stand in the corners, we'll, give you money. And I said, no, I don't want any funding, and I don't want signs out on lawns.
Okay.
I don't want people hanging around on street corners, distracting traffic. So that's just the way I've approached the campaign.
Yeah, you've kind of led into my follow-up question, because, taking the money out of it, up to this point, we haven't seen a lot of you, we haven't seen signs, we haven't seen people doing visibilities.
Nor will you.
and until tonight, and thank you very much for being here, we haven't seen you much in the media either.
Right.
And for the record, we've invited you a few times to be on the
Yes,
show and to participate in candidates forums. So it's not just the money. It doesn't sound like it's not just the money. There's another issue there, that there's another philosophical reason why you're sort of opposed to having all of those things. Because people could conceivably, I could go home and create a cliff sign and stand on the corner
and you're welcome to do it.
It wouldn't cost me any money. It wouldn't cost you any money.
You're welcome to do that, Makita, but it won't be at my request.
Okay. And why?
I would never stop anybody from
Okay.
from doing something like that. However, I would kind of at least
Okay.
street and somebody's out there jumping around.
It's all that stuff. But in all seriousness, though, so I just want to drill down and try to understand. So it's not just the money, but you just don't feel that campaigning is necessary, or campaigning should be traditional campaigning.
I think
Should be allowed.
Oh, I don't say that it shouldn't be allowed.
Okay, or rather, that's something you wouldn't.
It's something that
do.
I wouldn't do.
Okay, so how do you get your message out? How do you let these undecided people know that you are a voice for them? If
By eventually coming on your show.
Well, thank you again for being here.
And just to let people know why I didn't in the past. Is quite honestly, at the time there were 3 Democrat candidates running for the primary office. We had 1 Republican running unopposed, but there were the primaries to get through. We now have, a little over a month, and if I can't get my message out in a month, I certainly don't need to be telling people for a year or 2 years ahead of time, as we see in the national politics, who I am and what I am. Anybody who wants to know me, they can, Google my name. You'll get to a bunch of pictures. The pictures will explain a lot. Those are my paintings and images.
Excellent.
You can, go to the Historical Society page and see what we do there. You can check my Facebook page, and you can go back and you can find out a lot about Cliff Wilson over Facebook for the past however many years. Good, bad, or indifferent. It's out there.
It's all there.
It's all
out
there.
Internet never forgets.
Nope. And I welcome people to do it, because that's who I am. And people will either agree with it or not agree with it. That's their prerogative.
So while you're here and while you're on the show, I'm going to take the opportunity to ask you, who is Cliff? Who is Cliff? What are your roots in the area? We talked a little bit before the show, but you have close ties to Ashland and Framingham. Do you want to talk a little bit about your origin story, as it were?
Sure.
The Cliff Wilson origin
I was
story.
brought up in Ashland. I went through Ashland Public Schools through 7th grade. In 8th grade, my family moved to Framingham. I graduated from Framingham with honors.
Very good. Yep.
I graduated from Framingham. Then my family moved back to Ashland, at which point in time I went to Worcester Polytechnic Institute for 2.5 years and studied electrical engineering. Decided that it wasn't really the field that I thought it was going to be. Switched my major to business administration management. Went to school in Suffolk on Beacon Hill, right behind the State House, so I'm familiar with the neighborhood.
That should give you a leg up. So
lived on the hill, for 2 years while I was going to school, and I graduated from Suffolk, again with honors. Then I spent the next number of years working for Framingham Motor Parts in downtown Framingham, and basically parts headquarters of Framingham. We were a automotive warehouse and with 10 stores, and I was in charge of the inventory for the warehouse and the 10 stores. I was a buyer, inventory manager, and data processing director. Basically brought computers into the automotive field from handwritten receipts and whatnot. We were a beta site for a national computer company that specialized in automotive and in dental. I don't understand
That,
quite.
that is a very interesting combination, Cliff.
Yeah, I'm not quite.
How does that happen?
And hardware.
Hardware. Well, the
Yeah,
hardware
the
and the automotive
the
makes
hardware
sense.
and the automotive made perfect sense. I'm not quite sure how the dental
The
came
dental
in.
is an interesting, it's an interesting
But
addition.
actually, during that process, we introduced, we were the ones instrumental for putting what they call cataloging into the computer, so that if a customer came in and you'd say what year, what model, what make, whatever, and then you'd ask what, electrical, exhaust, what have you, and the system would then key down to the exact part that they needed for their vehicle. So that was all part of some of the things I did. After that, I left the automotive field and went into the computer service industry in a global company where we dealt with Federal Reserve, Fannie Mae, MIT, Harvard. We represented Dell and Sun and HP, Compaq, Fujitsu, IBM. And so we partnered with all of those companies, and we competed with all of those companies at the same time, which was another interesting thing. And I did that for 12 years, and the past 4 I've been retired. So.
Well, you certainly have some deep roots in Ashland and Framingham. You also have a wealth of professional experience, and I'm curious to find out, between your engineering skills, your business skills, some of the other things that you've done, especially with the Ashland Historical Society. How do you feel that all of that experience has prepared you to be state rep?
I think any life experience, I mean, to be a state rep, I think I said it earlier and I'll say it again, maybe I didn't say it earlier, but it might have been before the show. But I think to be a state rep, I take that very literally, representative. It's, I'd be there representing the people in the district. And it isn't what I want, it's what the people in the district want and what their needs are that are important. So I mean, I could take my business skills of my global skills, dealing with people from all over the world, and having to make, I mean, I'm still to this day friends with people all over the world who I've never met other than on the phone. You have to make, very quick decisions, and you have to know, for example, right the day after 9/11, the New York Stock Exchange, I think I can safely say this now, was in peril. Their servers that covered their security went down. And so I was able to get somebody from one of our local offices to get through the police barricades and get around the city enough so that they could finally get to the New York Stock Exchange to get their security systems back online.
Wow.
But so I just think, world life experience really is in dealing with anything, be it, as a rep or anything you do, it's your life experience that helps you deal with it.
So let's dig into some of the issues here. And I want to circle back to something that you said. You said that you want to be a representative for the people. And we chatted a little earlier about the show. I told you I was going to ask you a few questions about some public policy issues.
Yep.
And one thing that you said to me was that, well, I'd be happy to share my opinions with you, but at the end of the day, it's what the people expect from you. And my counterbalance to that was, well, people like to find out want to find out your opinion because they want to find out if their values and their thoughts align with
and that's
some of
fair.
yours.
That's
So
fair.
one issue that came up actually during the debate at the library was 40B. And I think you basically said that, quote unquote, it drives you nuts.
It does.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what is 40B, because some of our folks may not be familiar with what that is, and why does it drive you nuts?
For a number of reasons.
Okay.
40B in and of itself, the concept of 40B is to promote affordable housing. Now, I am not against affordable housing. Number one, I don't really believe that 40B provides it, so that drives me a little bit nuts. What really bothers me about it is that what it has allowed Ashland and Framingham, actually many towns, have, I feel, suffered from it, because what it does is it allows developers to come in, and number one, the developers are coming in with all the experience, all the knowledge, all of the power, all of the expertise in knowing how to get around very sensible restrictions that perhaps zoning and conservation, things of the needs of the community, the fire, police. They know how all the tricks of the trade, and they're coming up against people who are out there doing a great job as volunteers on different boards. And as a result, what we've seen is a lot of our land really destroyed. And we have these monstrous buildings in places that perhaps were, originally farmland. And what really drives me crazy about it is, and I don't expect people to do this, but for anybody who is interested, first of all, go online and find 40B, read it, and if you understand it, please call and tell me what it says, because it is so convoluted that even the people who support 40B have made changes and amendments and bypasses, well, yeah, you're supposed to have 10%, but if it looks like you're working towards it, I mean, it's crazy. And it should never have been written that way. And it's just gotten worse over the years.
So how would you address it? Let's solve it in 5 minutes, Cliff. Just solve it already. In all seriousness.
If I could get the other 159 reps to go along with me and the
Sure.
Senate to go along with me,
Sure.
I would just can it and start over again.
Mm-hmm.
I'd throw it right out and sit down and write a good one. And that's true of many of the laws, unfortunately. So, in fact, if you'd like to, you had asked me earlier before we started about the ballot questions.
Yes.
And I have to admit that I have made a change. I was going to vote no, yes. I was going to vote for the legalization of marijuana until I sat down and I read the entire 85 pages, I think it is, of the way the law is written, and I have definitely changed my mind. So,
What disturbs you about the way the law was written? I mean, the question was written.
Well, I whenever I see a law proposed, the first thing I like to see is who's backing it. That's number one, because I went to a forum at the high school last night in Ashland, and they said that there were actually 4 plans for that law. The other 3 were reasonable, and the one that's on the ballot is the one that the Attorney General allowed, and it's backed by the industry itself. What bothers me about it mostly is it just I don't want to see candy products looking like candy that kids are going to pick up, not knowing what it is. I don't care if the parents have it. but, you know, I don't care if they have the product. I don't have a big issue with that. But when things are marketed, you know, toward the kids, and that's okay within our laws, that's wrong. I don't like the taxation structure. Crazy as it may sound, they are doing the same thing with that they do with a few other things, and I really think it's wrong in Massachusetts and anywhere else that they do it. And that's where they have a tax on the product, and then they also have the sales tax, which is a sales tax on the tax that's already on it. Fundamentally, that just, I feel, should be illegal.
So it's going to get a no.
It's getting a no.
Okay. We're coming up on our last few minutes, Cliff. So
Already?
Already, time flies. But before we depart, I'll ask you a question that I'm going to be asking all the candidates here visiting us here on Policy Beast before the election. Well, no, I can't give the scenario that I usually give,
Oh.
you know, so, you know, you're canvassing or you're at a campaign event or whatever, but if someone were to come up to you and say, you know, Cliff, I saw your interview, or I saw something in the paper, I saw, you know, and I'm very curious about what you stand for. Can you tell me in one sentence why I should vote for you?
Absolutely not. Just because I'm lovable, I guess.
Fair enough, fair enough.
You know,
Fair enough.
it's just, you know, the way I look at it is some people are going to vote for Jack because he has a D after his name. They may not even know Jack. They may never have seen Jack or heard Jack. Some people are going to vote for Yolanda because she has an R after her name. And in the same scenario, I'm kind of hoping that some people vote for me because I have the U after my name, which is the funny way of now, it's like modern math. It's a funny way of spelling independent. Independent starts with a U nowadays.
Well, because there's an independent party.
Yeah, there's also
right?
a United Independent
There's a United
Party.
Independent Party, so there's a lot of confusion around that too.
Yeah. I understand the rationale and where it came from, but I am independent, and that's really what I'd like an eye.
You know, and I think we're going to leave it at that, Cliff. Thank you so much for joining
You're
us.
welcome.
And I just want to remind everybody that Tuesday, November 8th is Election Day, so if you
For
want-
those not voting for me, it's November 9th.
It's November 8th. It's very funny, Cliff, but we don't want to confuse the good people of Ashley and Framingham on this. But Cliff Wilson has been our guest on Policy Beast tonight. He is running an uncampaign for the 7th Middlesex seat, state representative. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Thank you, Makita, for having me here.
And thank you very much for joining us on Policy Beast tonight. We'd love to hear from you here at Policy Beast, and there are a lot of ways to get in touch with us. You can follow us on Twitter at PolicyBeastTV. We have a Facebook fan page. Look us up on Facebook. You can also email us at policybeasttv@gmail.com. So many ways to get in touch, and we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to hear about any kind of show ideas or any kind of topics that you'd like us to dive deep into.